You are stuck at a mid-level as a developer for one simple reason. You are probably a great coder, but the reason you don't make 200k, 300k or more as a developer is because you don't know how to position yourself. You don't know how to communicate your value, and you definitely don't know how to market yourself. And yes, marketing is also a skill for developers. I'm not talking about starting a LinkedIn influencer blog or your personal brand, but basically you need to know the bare minimum of marketing. You cannot get multi-six figures without learning these skills. That is not possible. Even the best products, if you look at them in the world, like ChatGPT, Cloud, Canva, and other softwares that are like just a no-brainer for you to subscribe and use their products, even they are doing marketing 24/7, and you are a product as well. So what makes you think that you can avoid this step? And that's just one of the skills that you can stack to become a super valuable engineer. I only got good at marketing and positioning after going through hundreds of interviews, working closely with C-level executives, and seeing firsthand what they actually value in software engineers. And in this video, I will show you how to become 1 percentile developer without wasting 5 or 10 years or grinding for hours after work like I did. I will show you the 5-layer pyramid you can stack up to double your income as a developer in just a few months. Just like one of our clients, Daniel, did, who went from 150k to 300k by positioning himself right in the market. The first layer in this pyramid is the technical skills. This is where 70% of developers live. If you ask a developer to explain a project they built, they instantly drop into this super technical mode, like I Dockerized microservices, I built an automated RAG system, I set up pipelines, I used Redis PubSub model, and anything technical but not related to the business context. This instantly shows that you just followed instructions, you executed instructions that someone else gave to you in the company, and you're not the decision maker in there, and you also don't understand why any of this matters. I've seen some of them are also trying to use methods like the star methods, and everyone can tell that, by the way. Some just list tasks, but it's all the same problem, like you don't know why you built anything. And that's exactly why most developers stay mid forever, because they only know how to talk about what they did, not why they did it. The layer 2 after that is understanding about the architecture, system design, and trade-offs of the system. This is where I would say like you are ahead of most of the developers, like this is where the next, let's say 20% lives. This layer is understanding why the system is built this way, how components talk to each other, the microservices, performance versus cost optimizations, consistency versus availability, latency and throughput, what breaks under the load, when to use queues, caches, DB patterns, why a feature actually matters at scale, and all of these architectural decisions. This is the moment you stop being a task executor, like the bare minimum that you're doing, which is coding, and start being an engineer who makes decisions in the software. So this step, you're not just telling that you used Kafka to add a message queue, you're also telling why Kafka was the right choice for this specific system. Or instead of telling that you used database sharding, you talk about why your database hit the vertical scaling limits and how sharding actually fixed that bottleneck. At this layer is where the companies start seeing you as someone who can be trusted with bigger parts of the system and ship features end to end. And this is where the layers of technicality end. Actually, most developers are either in the coding stage or in the system design and architectural stage. But after that, you still have other skills to stack up. For example, the third layer is the soft skills, which is the communication and clarity as a developer. Above that, you have the devs who can actually communicate. They know how to explain ideas clearly, work with teams, show the leadership whenever needed, and make people trust them with big decisions. Most engineers ignore this layer at all because they think coding is enough, and it's not. This is also one of the skills that you need to get good at over time, but some people never do actually. And I've met developers with 10 or 20 years of experiences who still can't explain what they are working on, why something took longer than expected, or what are the real blockers that they worked on on a feature. They just disappear into the code and hope nobody asks questions about this. So soft skills are not optional. You are working with teams, you are not working as a solo developer. So if you can't communicate your work, you'll get stuck no matter how good you are technically. The next layer is something I personally didn't see anyone talk about, and that is sales, which is selling your skills and your expertise. Nobody actually talks about this layer, but it's one of the most important ones. Actually, developers are terrible at selling their work or service. They present projects like robots, as I brought the first example, like talking only the technicalities. They talk about tools instead of the business impact, and meanwhile the top engineers, they present their work like a product. Like they talk about the trade-offs, the pain points of the business that they solved, and the value they brought to the previous companies they worked with. That is because most of the companies that you talk with in interviews, they are actually in huge pain, especially let's say startups. And your job is to also identify what these pain points are and hit on these pain points in the interview. This is how you get offers on the call. For example, this is how once I got an offer right in the call with the CTO, because it was an AI startup and I talked about exactly the features that I built in the previous company that relate to this one, and they were struggling actually with these things. These were the things that they are looking to implement in the next few months, and you need to be able to hit on these pain points and show that you can solve it for the company. That is how I got the offer right on the call, and once he got someone who can ship the features they are looking for, he didn't want to lose the opportunity. So he made the offer right in the call and we agreed to sign the contract. And probably you've seen this as well. You probably have someone like a colleague that sucks at coding and technical layer, but for some reason he gets paid more than you. Now imagine if you mastered both coding and sales skills, you would get paid even more than that colleague that you have. And finally, the top of this pyramid, the final layer, is business understanding. This is actually, I would say, where top 1% developers are. This is where the elite engineers operate, the ones that everyone wants to hire. This is the layer that, again, nobody talks about, and it's the real separator. Once you understand that every tech company runs on two simple things, it gets way easier than it is. And these two simple things are, first, they make the software more valuable if it's a SaaS company, and the second thing is they are trying to reduce the cost of the infrastructure. And once you understand this, you start thinking like a senior or staff engineer instead of just a developer in the company. Suddenly, if you recall the feature you shipped, it is something that drove the revenue for the business, or it added the retention, increased the retention of the current customers, or the memory leak that you are fixing, it is actually a cost saving on the infrastructure part, or the refactorings that you are doing and reducing the technical debt, it actually improves the velocity of the software. The architecture choice impacts burn rate, and every feature that you ship falls into one of these buckets. You're either making more money for the company by shipping new features or retaining customers, or you are cutting the infrastructure costs, which is eventually both of these result in more money for the business. And if you can explain your work through this lens, you instantly separate yourself from 99% of other developers who only talk about Dockerizing Node.js applications or building RESTful CRUD APIs or any technical concepts that they are talking about. And this is where I will also recommend you shift your perspective about your career. Most developers never realize this, but your developer career is actually a business. You are a product and there are no fixed hours, meaning you are not sitting in some office working 8 hours. You can work from your laptop, you control your output, and you also control your income. And like with any other business, you either invest in it to grow it or it stays small forever. And most developers never invest back into their business actually. They treat their career like a small local shop that hasn't changed in the last 10 years. with the same dusty shelves, same store brand products, same local customers, and same daily routine. Nobody drives to this local shop for 30 minutes to buy something from them, and it barely survives, but it never grows. And on the other hand, you have businesses that constantly grow, like large supermarkets. They open new locations every month, they renovate, upgrade systems, innovate, and improve logistics. That is because they invest back into their business, because they understand the ROI of the business. So that will help you grow faster in your developer career. Developers are also the same. And when I say invest, I don't mean buying a $50 Udemy course. That's what beginners do. That's what you did probably when you started your career. I'm talking about like real investments that produce high ROI, which means like extra 10K, 50K or 100K to your annual salary. And this is the 5-layer pyramid that by mastering you actually become the 8-year developer engineer that every company would love to hire. And as you can see, most developers never even move past the layer 1 or 2. And if you'd like to become the layer 5 engineer that every company loves to hire, then there is a link for you in the description, which you can check out to apply to join the mentorship program, where we help developers get to the layer 5 and get multi-6-figure salaries.